Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bituation Room on a Tuesday, May 20th. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us, for pressing play, for, watching live if you're watching live. We've got a great show today. Beatrice Adler-Bolton of the Death Panels podcast is with us, a new mom. We're going to talk to her about all things healthcare, including being a new mom and doing what she does, which is talking about the broken healthcare system in this country. A little bit of Luigi Mangione, a little bit of Medicaid discussion that will be ripped away from millions and millions of people should the Republicans pass their big, beautiful bill that is just a tax break for rich people. So get excited for that. But first, comedian and co-host of the Dollop podcast, Dave Anthony, is with us to talk about Biden's diagnosis. We're going to talk about whether we care, whether it's important that he might have had said diagnosis and had his prostate cancer while being president. We're also going to look at how the grads of 2025 are leading the way morally, ethically, and there is no way that, in my opinion, any Democrat that still carries water for Israel is going to get very far if the kids are, the kids are voting, if the kids are going out into the world, having witnessed what they've witnessed via their phones, having been repressed in the way they are. So we're going to talk about all the grads standing up for Gaza. Is going to be so good. But right now, here's what you do: you palm your dirty phone. You like the stream, you share it right now if you're watching live over on Twitch. What's up? Also, give this podcast 5 stars on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, this is only 1/3 of the show. That whether you like it or not, God damn it, there is a Wednesday show and a Friday show. Friday show is free for everybody. Fantastic Fridays. On Friday, I spoke to Carlos Martinez and Ronica Mukherjee all about how the prison industrial complex makes us sicker, does not actually make us safer. And if you missed that conversation, definitely go back and listen to it. In addition to a bunch of other stories, Fridays are just extending. It's a very long Friday. It's a Good Friday. Not that kind of Good Friday. But Wednesdays are our bonus episode, and they are available for all of our patrones. They're actually available free to watch live, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. But if you want to watch them back, if you want to listen and go on a brisk walk with your little weights, like the lady in my neighborhood that I used to think was like weird. And now I'm like, I should carry weights. I'm like, oh my God, I'm middle-aged. Like that vibe. She was definitely grooving to the Bituation Room podcast back then. In 1997. The point is, you should be a patron. Patreon.com/Bituation Room. Support me, support this little labor of love. Brent and Paige and Andy, who crush it every single week and help me bring you the stories, bring you the news, and bring you these awesome guests that I love dearly. Only the best. Patreon.com/Bituation Room. And if you're in LA or if you know people in LA, this is going to just be a great night. I always love our live shows, and May 30th, Friday, is going to be no different. Councilmember Eunices Hernandez, John Idarola of The Damage Report, LA Podcast co-host Rachel Reyes, and my beloved Matt Lieb. We're also added a representative from the Rent Brigade, so that's going to be excellent. And we're going to have Paula Bigunalan, who you've heard here. She's going to be opening for the show. It's just going to be a good night. So Elysian Theater, get your tickets wherever you're seeing or watching this. It'll be so fun. And with that, hang on, let me make sure I haven't. Okay. And with that, let's get into it, guys. Get your bitch caps on. Again, I'm trying to get you the cutest little bitch caps. They're coming. They really are coming. They will say more than just bitch on them. But before we do that, wait, Paige is reminding me, we have an AMA. So if you are a patron, tomorrow after the bonus, we're going to do an Ask Me Anything. I've already gotten some great questions. Send them in to the email, bishiation@gmail.com, or Patreon inbox. Or if you're a member on YouTube, go over to the members posts And you will see that and just throw your comment down or your question down below. So that'll be always fun, always a good time to get your questions and dig into some stuff. And with that, it's getting progressively hotter in this room, and I'm gonna survive. But and you just forget to turn on the AC, and it's May. This is What Are You Bitching About? So, since the 2024 election did not go the way of not fascism, I think the postmortems I'm in favor of. I think we should never stop learning the lessons of what happens when you run centrist Democrats without a strong vision and who do not speak to the realities of Americans and talk about things like economic economies or economic what is it? The opportunity economy, excuse me, versus just saying things like Medicare for all or, universal basic income or, massive limits on rent gouging and price gouging and all this. So, but one of those lessons for me, as we are in a week where Israel has absolutely ramped up its attacks on Gaza. And not only that, but is openly saying this is their final solution. We know that 80% of buildings in Gaza have been destroyed. And just over the last few days, you're talking 600 people killed, mostly refugee camps. We're looking at, I think the UN just this morning said 14,000 children, babies are at risk of dying in the next 48 hours. If aid doesn't enter, Israel's promised to allow a little bit of aid in. That aid is not reaching people. So it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to receive it. It's another thing to survive. And that is not actually what the Israeli government wants. And largely because no restraint was put from the American government onto the Israeli government. It has not happened, obviously, under Trump. And it sure as shit did not happen under Biden. And really being honest about that, and how that contributed to so many ostensible Democrats staying home, feeling like their issues didn't matter, feeling like they tried, that they, cried out, they made calls, they took the streets and were reprimanded and called, petulant or anti-Semitic at worst, for standing up for the people of Gaza. I mean, that really all should factor into any Democratic Party that's worth its salt, that wants to move forward in this time. And yet, one of the main organizers of the Uncommitted movement, Waleed Shahid, had a back and forth with Amr Moussa, who is the former director of the Kamala Harris Rapid Response Team, worked on her campaign, was a former speechwriter for Joe Biden. He's steeped. He's a young guy, steeped in the Democratic Party. This is one of them, Democratic consultants, kind of Democratic operatives. That is this person. And upon news that Trump is trying to relocate 1 million Palestinians from Gaza to Libya, Amr tweeted, CC the Uncommitted movement. Now, if you can't read between the lines, this is what we've been seeing from a lot of, blue MAGA libs, which is let's blame the people who had a problem with voting for someone who was greenlighting genocide and supplying the weapons to do said genocide. Let's blame them rather than my candidate who refused to budge after months, after the international outcry, after all kinds of human rights bodies said what they said about what was happening, the ICJ cases against Israel, the arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant, that no. It's these pesky little lefties who can't see past the dead babies. That's who we're going to blame. And Waleed responded, which I think is a very perfect response, saying there's a genre of Democratic operative who spent the last year gaslighting the public and covering up Biden's decline, who now only invoke Palestinians not to mourn them, but to mock them. It's cynical hackery at its worst, divisive and self-sabotaging at a moment when we should be earning back the trust of voters. This party pushed away. If we're serious about stopping MAGA, like showing up late to a funeral just to shame the mourners for crying. That is beautifully said. And then, of course, Amr Moussa has to respond. There's a genre of Dem operative who cares more about clout chasing than winning elections. Waleed led a campaign to persuade voters Kamala Harris would have treated Palestine the same as Trump. He knew that was a lie, but he couldn't stop because it damaged his business. Okay, there's three fallacies in that, but the idea that Waleed is clout chasing, okay, whatever, my guy, yes, anyone who works on primarying Democrats must be chasing clout. Because that's a total winning strategy. Every single time it works. Hell yeah, every time you push Dems from the left, you always win. But the idea, number one, that the uncommitted movement said that Trump was going to be the same as Kamala Harris is a blatant lie. Waleed then points that out, citing a New York Times article, which says that the uncommitted movement knew that Kamala Harris, there was more opportunity. She would be an improvement for Biden from Biden's severe lack of empathy, said Waleed at the time. An improvement, not only from Biden, but obviously from Trump as well. But like the last part about all you care about is that they care about clout chasing rather than winning elections is just wild to me, because the uncommitted movement, I think for those of you who might follow me, for those of you who disagreed with me about supporting Kamala Harris as a lesser of two evils, I think you know that some of these last-ditch efforts to bring disaffected people back into the political process, like the uncommitted movement, was the only thing that was engaging voters in 2024. And that, along with efforts like Swap My Vote, if you guys remember that, which was people in safe blue states swapping their vote with people in swing states, so that the person in the blue state would vote for Kamala Harris, would vote for a third party, while the person in that swing state that was more at risk would vote for Kamala, even though they were morally against it. If you guys remember that, there were so many attempts, but the uncommitted movement was absolutely shunted. They didn't allow a single Palestinian or Arab or Muslim speaker on the DNC stage. And they were sidelined. Yeah, they met with them, but it was like, yeah, no thanks. And on top of that, lastly, I think we all need to remember, Kamala Harris volunteers were directed when they received text messages or emails or calls about Gaza to write that wasn't about Gaza, that they had that there was no response. They just weren't responding. So it was like nobody picked up the phone, nobody responded back. So Gaza was a non-issue in Kamala's eyes. Even though her language was maybe one hair to the better of Joe Biden's, felt like maybe there was a little bit more performative sympathy, but in practice, nothing. And so I am bitching about the callousness with which these Democratic operatives, who are so close to actual power, treat the entire base. And again, it's not just Gaza, folks. It's not just people who care about that issue. It is voters of color. It is voters who care about actually reining in the cops, like in 2020, a surge of momentum that got Biden elected in the first place. It is trans voters. It is women. It is all of us, all of the people who feel marginalized. It is working people, and to be so eager to blame voters rather than your own bullshit strategy, it's just like, it makes me lose hope in the Democratic Party. And we all know my hope in the Democratic Party and faith in it is at an all-time low. And what do you know? So are most Americans. We'll look at the polling a little bit later. So it's really disgusting. And if they don't learn to wise up, they're going to lose again and again. And it won't be because of people like me who are telling my audience, vote for the lesser of two evils as much as it pains you. No, but like, you can't fake it. You can't fake caring about people's issues when you're overseeing this kind of treatment and genocide and flaunting international law. You can't then say, oh, but Trump and norms and democracy and human rights. And no, because you don't abide by the same thing. You're such a hypocrite. So that's on you. That's on you. And it's very disheartening. And what do I do when I feel disheartened? Well, because my heart palpitations seemingly start to increase, my blood pressure rises. Sometimes you want to relax. Sometimes you want to pop a little relax gummy from Sunset Lake CBD. That is right, everybody. It is kind of amazing that a political news show / comedy show has a sponsor that is a CBD company that is an awesome company based out of Vermont, vertically integrated, regeneratively farmed, donates a portion of their proceeds to awesome causes. Because in this time, it is very stressful to pay attention to the news. It is coming way too fast. And so that is why we all need a relaxed gummy, a focus gummy if you want to get something done. SunsetLakeCBD.com, coupon code Frantifa to get 20% off your entire order. But wait, there's more. And Francesca forgot to read the copy that she was handed. Because now through May 26th, that's right. So less than a week, you can save 35. Ooh, this is good. 35% is good off all CBD tinctures when you shop with code Memorial25. Memorial followed by 25, all one word. Again, that's their sleep tinctures, even their pet tinctures, but also regular formula. And they've got all different flavors. There's like mint, there's like regular, the nutty cannabis flavor if you're into that. So if you need a little help managing your stress this season, no matter, what you're going through right now, I feel like America could use some of this. Sale ends May 26th at midnight. Don't wait. Stock up on your favorite tinctures. SunsetLakeCBD.com, Memorial 25 for 35% of your whole order. And with that, let me bring in to the show. He is a fabulous, that is how it was spelled, a fabulous writer, comedian, and podcaster. He co-hosts the history/comedy podcast, which is my podcast of preference. Like when I go on my power walks, it's always the Dollop with comedian Gareth Reynolds as well. And you may have seen him perform on the Jimmy Kimmel. I was going to say the Kimmy Jimmel. The Jimmy Kimmel Show, The Late Late Show, or Comedy Central. And you can buy his albums, The Shame Chamber or Hothead, where can we buy your albums? Dave Anthony.
Hi.
Can we still get
Bandcamp.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I'm assuming this is a Bandcamp thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can get them anywhere, but Bandcamp is where you should buy anything.
That's where you should buy things.
Yeah.
Dave Anthony, welcome back.
Hello.
You've not been here since, the second coming.
Yeah.
Of what we all saw coming.
For like 3 years.
Yes. But welcome. It is May. It's almost the end of Jesus Christ. It's almost the end of May. What are you bitching about today, Dave Anthony?
I mean, there's two things. One is that the FDA passed it went through the motions, whatever it is at the FDA, but they decided to restrict COVID vaccines.
Yeah, right now it's just a rain stick with a few like feathers attached to it. That's what they do. Something that RFK found on a hike.
Yeah, so now if you're over 64, you can get it, but if you're under 64, you're supposed to have an underlying condition, and then that's to 12. I don't think there's anything under 12, but because kids are fine with that vaccines for COVID. There's not tons of research piling up that it's really bad for kids to get COVID or anything, but so that's
now this is enraging. Were you up to date on your vaccines? This is personal medical information now.
Yes, I'm always up to date on my vaccines. I get the Novavax, which actually I couldn't get this time because it just vanished.
Which one's that?
That's the good one.
Oh, that's the good one? The good COVID one?
Yeah, it's not the mRNA ones are Moderna and Pfizer. The Novavax really causes less any sort of after effects you might have.
I see.
Because the other ones, they weren't terrible, but I just didn't feel right for a couple of days.
And you didn't feel anything with the Nova one? I want to try it now.
Yeah, it's much better. And then also there's some research that says that it actually is doing a decent job preventing
the new strains.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean,
it's like a regular old vaccine, so it like builds upon itself.
Yeah, my question is the underlying condition that I could qualify for fear? Like, could I just go in and be like, I have fear. Can I get the vax?
It should be. Well, depression is an underlying effect, so you can say, yeah, I'm pretty bummed.
Do they still even believe in depression that exists? Or will it get hauled away to a wellness camp?
I'm sure they'll get rid of it, yeah.
No, it's enraging, especially because as someone with a small child, if that small child can't be protected, like I'm already worried about measles. It's only a fucking matter of time. What some guy, as if Newark Airport weren't going through enough, some guy with measles came through Newark or person, I don't know who they were. And it was like, well, if you were at Newark between, you know, the hours of 12 and 4, number one, congratulations for landing without incident, since there are no air traffic controllers. But number two, you might have measles now. So, hey, when life gives you lemons or something like, but anyway, but I'm like, so many people who died in COVID, which 1 million Americans, my uncle included, I'm sure people, we all know somebody, a lot of them got infected because they were sheltering with a child, that like kids were transmitting it to the elderly, right? And, or an elderly, to anyone. I mean, I get sick maybe once a month from my kid.
Yeah, yeah, you get kids when a child is your child's age, as a parent, you're constantly sick.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. She sneezes in my mouth.
It's like, you know, watching all those people saying it doesn't affect kids. Number one, it does. There's a lot of kids with long COVID now, but also like, so does it not affect a kid to kill their grandparent?
Exactly.
Doesn't affect them.
Seriously though.
There's like, you know, a couple 100,000 orphans because of COVID. How many of those kids brought it home and now feel, you know, horrible?
Yeah. The mental health impact of that. Like, cool. Would have been fun to stay home from school. I mean, that's Yep. It's all bad. It's all bad. I want to talk about that in my little rundown, Dave, that we started here on the Bitchuation Room, which is a place where we put all the bad things that are happening in Trump world, in our world, and we call it Orange Man Bad. Here we go.
Okay.
Wait for the mustache to get in the middle. There we go. This week on Orange Man Bad, in a display of true dumbassery in a congressional hearing, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said the president can invoke habeas corpus, proving she has no idea what habeas corpus is, which is the right to contest your imprisonment, right? Like she was like, President Lincoln invoked it. Like, oh God. It would have been embarrassing, Dave, had she not looked really fuckable while doing it. Like, she looked so hot. Like, if I'm going to misunderstand the Constitution on national television, like, let me at least look hot. It turns out the luxury jet for Donald Trump isn't actually even a gift from the country of Qatar. It's actually something Trump sought out since he didn't like Air Force One, which is a very on-brand trade. Which is a very on-brand trade to trade political favor for a newer, shinier object. How else did he get Melania? Russia came through. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, Meanwhile, the DOJ gave January 6th insurrectionist Ashley Babbitt's family $5 million, marking the one and only time Trump believes in someone who's killed by the cops getting any money whatsoever, which is when they are also a cop. Babbitt was a former military police officer. Look, guys, black on black crime is intractable, but blue on blue crime is an investment. Meanwhile, another January 6th rioter who assaulted cops and was pardoned by Trump has been arrested for home invasion. And I have to say, with all this talk about new reality TV shows, I do think we need to do one on the pardoned Jan 6ers. Just to catch an insurrectionist again.
I mean, so much crime.
So much. One of them was soliciting sex from a minor. Like,
yeah. What are you going to do when you get out? I mean, come on.
Well, I'm going to try to, have sex with a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, Disneyland. Sorry, was I supposed to say Disneyland? The FDA, as Dave mentioned, is limiting the new COVID vaccine for people under the age of 65. Is it 4? You said
64.
64. Who aren't, according to them, high risk. And younger people are now being directed to snort lines of emergency and get into CrossFit. So.
What? What?
That I mean, look, that was the director from the FDA / my brain. That was the joke part. It didn't land. It's okay, Dave. It's okay. It's okay. And that has been Orange Man Bad Guys.
Well, it's hard to do exaggeration now.
No, satire is dead. I mean, I always quote NATO when I say it's been a work speed up. Like, this is unfair. Like,
yeah, you say snort vitamin C. I'm like, God, that sounds like something they do. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and honestly, like, even people who are like they do believe in the vaccine. When you get COVID, they're like, so here's what you got to do. You got to do an enema of vitamin C. And you're like, okay, not you know, please.
Look, all the shit with the vaccines, that's all on Biden, because they did not. You go to other countries and they're just like hammering people with information. It's on. There's ads, there's everything, and Biden just left a void, and it got filled by nonsense.
Yep.
Because he left a void of information.
Yeah. And because it's not politically expedient to talk about COVID anymore.
You're right. Yeah, you gotta act like it's gone.
You gotta act like it's gone. Anyway, let's talk about it. Speaking of health episodes, let's get into 2 stories. This is the week where. There's no way to put this gently, but Joe Biden has nut cancer. He has a small nodule in his prostate that has been, let the jury see that Dave Anthony is raising his glass. There was a small nodule that was being investigated in his prostate. It turns out to be stage 4 prostate cancer that has metastasized to the bone. It can be treated with hormone therapy. That's what they're looking into. It is also a diagnosis that 300,000 Americans a year get. 3 million people currently live with prostate cancer. Not all of them very well, but there's a lot of angles to this story, Dave. And I want to find the Bituation Room's, unique angle, but we have to sift through a lot of it. There's a healthcare angle, and the fact that he's going to get the best treatment available. There's the tone policing on how we should feel about said diagnosis that is happening from a lot of Dems, people in my mentions.
Great.
Yeah, people who are very mad that anyone would feel anything but like endless empathy and sympathy, and as if this person were our family member.
Yeah, I didn't care when Pol Pot died. Idi Amin, all of the people who have done genocides, I haven't cared about.
Well, we would hope you would make a little bit of an exception for an American, Dave. Like
our genocider.
Our genocider.
He's a war criminal. His career is a nightmare. He is a ghastly, horrible human being. And I would say, libs, if you're upset now about what people are saying, when he dies, I would check out for a few days, because we're going to be having parties. He's Dick Cheney to us.
Somehow a man who's still alive. Look, if I were to wish this upon someone, maybe not, this might not be my number one, but I will say, just to respond to you, the night before I learned of the diagnosis, it was Saturday. It was Saturday, I believe. And this was when we knew that Israel was ramping up their attacks on Gaza, and they were leaking this, final solution thing, just a straight Holocaust. And I felt nothing but rage for Joe Biden, that I wanted him actually to go away. I mean, I won't say exactly what I felt or thought, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, this is on him. This is on his fucking hands. And now we know, with all this new reporting, that all the Biden officials resigned because they were like, nothing is being done to rein in this insanity, this human rights atrocity. So I don't want anything to do with it. And including Jewish officials who are like, I want no part of this. This is not anti-Semitism. This is human rights violation, whatever. This is genocide. So, but apparently you're not, when someone is sick, Dave, I don't know if you knew this, but when someone is sick, they become awesome. Like, they become great. And everything that they've done must be heralded.
Look, I was happy when my dad died because he was a piece of garbage. So if you expect me to now all of a sudden act like Biden is some good statesman, he's a terrible person. He's a terrible, terrible person. He
And I think
has, in my life, he has made death acceptable both domestically and internationally like no other president in my lifetime.
And I think that, you know, I was thinking about this too. I was like, maybe, and this is going to sound, again, blue MAGA, cover your ears. I do kind of feel like Joe Biden is the prostate cancer of America. Like, just like slow growing, persistent, will kill you, but like not as aggressively as a Republican, like not a pancreatic situation, but like Joe Biden, who's refused to advocate for Medicare for all in his long storied career, to say nothing, of course, of support of Israel in his whole career. Joe Biden, who, you know, and this was interesting to point out, that he granted clemency to a Mississippi doctor who was sentenced to 20 years for defrauding Medicare by providing diluted chemo drugs and old needles to cancer patients. One of the patients, now I want you to know, the person who, the account that pushed this tweet out, this information out, is an account called Hold Dems Accountable, which is basically, they're like, yo, we don't believe in the right, we hate fascism, but we need to do better. So like, in case you think that a Republican is finding, no, it's ostensible, it's progressives, it's leftists. And the fact that like, yeah, doing all that, and then, and on top of it, I think doing to me, the biggest failure, which was walking our country back into the arms of Donald Trump. Even though he said it was him alone who could get elected, and he did get elected. A lot of things had to come together for him to get elected, namely also the George Floyd uprising of 2020. And he rode that wave of, you know, reaction and response. He claimed that he was going to do something on that front and didn't. The entire Democratic establishment coalesced around Biden, and Obama made the call. Everyone else dropped out because heaven for fucking bid that Bernie Sanders would be the nominee. Not because they would have lost, but because what if he would have won? What if he would have won, and all of our donors, all of the money we make would go away? And if you think that I'm being crass, 16 Democrats just voted with Republicans in the Senate to effectively greenlight Trump's meme coin scam right now. Yeah. That just happened. These people want their money too. They just don't want to look like open pieces of shit while they're getting it.
Look, the other thing is, there are a lot of people with prostate cancer. There's not a lot of people with aggressive prostate cancer. Here's the fun thing. Go Google aggressive cancers and COVID, and you see a massive spike. COVID is causing aggressive cancers. It messes with your T cells. It does a lot of damage to your immune system. And he now has an aggressive cancer because who knows how many times doddering old dementia got COVID, because he's a guy with dementia who took off his mask when he wasn't supposed to, when none of the health departments around the country were ready for it. He just whipped it off and said it's fine now because he's an old man with dementia. And that alone caused so many people to be disabled and die because he should not have been doing it.
This was the question, obviously, mainstream news, between sort of like glazing Biden's legacy and, you know, all of that. They're also really focused on, I think, the least interesting angle, but it's an angle. And the right is obviously also focused on this, which is, when did he know that he had prostate cancer? This is from Morning Joe, which I think is sort of notable given how much Joe Scarborough loves Joe Biden, as well as Donald Trump. And here is a physician saying that there's no way that they didn't detect this earlier. He's not actually specifically saying that, but we can talk about whether this was detected earlier. He's saying he definitely had it while being in office.
You believe it is likely, if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone, that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years.
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
Again, I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021.
So, look.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that guy talking is a monster. So let's. That guy's just
Scarborough, you mean, or the doctor?
No, the doctor. The doctor's a guy who's like, yeah, when you're 76, you should just die. Like he's like a monster.
Oh, really?
He's one of the architects of Biden's of Obamacare, but he's an absolute monster.
Oh shit!
But yeah, he had it for a long time. But like I said, COVID is taking a lot of just regular cancers and making them aggressive. Like it's not causing cancer; it's making cancers more aggressive.
Yeah,
and pancreatic cancers through the roof. So this could also be the case here. I don't know how often it is aggressive, but I was watching scientists talk about it, and they're like, "Yeah, this is a little on the nose with what we've been going through." But yeah, he had it. Why would they tell us? We all saw The West Wing. We all saw he got away with it.
I didn't. Was this the plot line in The West Wing?
They literally have been trained to learn that it's okay for you to hide your medical condition. Like they went through it with the show, and he came out and was still a great president. Liberals have literally been trained to believe in this stuff, and they also think like, well, we just got to stop the big bad. So if he's got to hide his cancer, he's got to hide his cancer. And it's like, dude said he was going to be a one-term president. He should have already been gone. Day one, he should have been like, this is my last term. That's why we're here, because he didn't.
That's why we're here. That is why we're here. Agreed. And look, I think you're right. Like in the grand scheme of, am I more mad if he knew he had it? This is the question. If he knew he had it and didn't say anything, I don't know. I'm more concerned about his actions. But you're right. If you get elected, it's 2021. You only think, or you say you're going to serve one term. That's 4 years. Okay. Your prostate cancer is probably not going to get you by then, right? It is slow growing. I'm curious as to like why he wasn't already undergoing some sort of treatment, or which is even grosser to be like, I mean, it's more just like what you're saying, a product of our just really fucked politics, where it's like, well, he can't actually undergo treatment because then the public would know. Okay, so you're hastening his demise by not treating it. It's just
But is there any indication that they were treating him like a human being at all? Like the people surrounded him, like his wife to me is just a monster. Like, how could she let him go through all that? The dementia stuff is crazy. And she's like, yeah, he'll run again. It's like, what were these? They were just like using him. The people around him are really monsters. I mean, even I feel like Nancy Reagan was maybe better at it than Jill Biden. But again, it's hard to have these critiques without feeling like we're playing into the right narratives around this, because ultimately, again, I don't care if he was doing good, I would be okay with it. I mean, and that's kind of my own bias, which is like, if he put a stop to weapons shipments to Israel, I'd be like, good on this president. If he stuck to his guns on the Build Back Better bill and didn't let Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema run roughshod over him, I would have been down with that. But he didn't on any of those levels. And I think even more importantly, the Gaza age question actually comes in. It plays well together, because right around the time when libs were starting to talk about whether or not he was fit for office, this was like, again, like, yeah, obviously before October 7th in the summer, as soon as October 7th happened, it's like, well, now he's a wartime president. We're not going to talk about it. And so then for the next like 10 months until it was clear he had to, or whatever, less than that, when it was clear he had to run again, nobody really talked about his fitness for office or whether he should run again, because it was like, well, now we're in lockstep with Israel fighting the terrorists again. What a great win. So they actually are related more than I think a lot of Democrats want to admit. Let's move on because there is more. And this is a hopeful segment, but the kids are all right, guys, even if their universities hate them. But this is obviously a season of graduation.
And at a lot of different universities, those chosen to speak have been speaking out on Gaza, which means all of them have basically said to the administrators, oh yeah, I'm going to give a speech about, hard work and hustle culture and intellectual freedom or something. And then when they get up there, they're like, stop the genocide, stop the complicity, which is why so many universities are upset. But it kind of all kicked off with the valedictorian of NYU, Logan Rossos, who graduated from Gallatin. Shout out to Gallatin grads. I am one of them. Yes, I have a degree in post-colonial feminist studies. Fuck you. I'm unemployable. Here is Logan saying what he said. Tell me when it starts to get insane.
Addressing you all,
Oop.
my moral and political commitments guide me to say that the only thing that is appropriate to say in this time and to a group this large is a recognition of the atrocities currently happening in Palestine.
Massive applause, obviously.
I want to say that the genocide currently occurring is supported politically and militarily by the United States, is paid for by our tax dollars, and has been live streamed to our phones for the past 18 months, and that I do not wish to speak only to my own politics today, but to speak for all people of conscience, and all people who feel the moral injury of this atrocity.
The moral injury of this atrocity. It is so basic. It's very, very, the kinds of things he's saying is like, it's being supported by the United States. There, what do you want me to say? He doesn't even invoke NYU and possible ties that NYU might have or investments they might have in Israel or any kind of weapons manufacturers. And they withheld his diploma. That's fun. This was the easiest call I made because, Dave, I'm an alum of NYU, spent most of it protesting the Iraq War. So it was the easiest call for me because I was like, oh, I'm picking a hello admission. Like I would call everybody up in there the day that I found this out. And look, actor Zach Woods just this is so great. He had not spoken out, I believe, about Gaza, but this little NYU takedown I have to show because it's fucking awesome.
This week, my alma mater, NYU, heroically withheld the diploma of one of their students who used their graduation speech to speak out against war crimes. Bravo. And to that student, I ask, did NYU teach you nothing? Your values are for brochures and for marketing, not for real-life enactment, you silly fucking goose. NYU is about impoverishing your family with ludicrous tuition bills while developing a severe addiction to ketamine and manga websites and falafel. It's about the romance
Definitely
of
falafel.
going to the Wells Fargo that used to be CBGB's and taking money out of the ATM and using it to buy ayahuasca from a finance major named Coldridge Eaton. Or Eaton Coldridge, you'll never be 100% sure. And he claims he's a shaman because one of his nannies spoke Portuguese. So you follow Coldridge or Eaton into the dormitory that used to be the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory.
It did.
Where you do the ayahuasca and get the trip of a lifetime until you spot in the corner a translucent little girl sitting at a loom. And she's giving you a very shitty and judgy look, which traumatizes you. So you go to the counseling center where you tell them about this horror and you're put on a list and suspended because you're a financial liability and a suicide risk because the shitty loom girl told you that you're living an expensive, empty cliche.
You're living in an expensive, empty cliche. I just had to get to that part because it's so true. NYU is an expensive, empty cliche. Do not go there. Do not send your kids there. It's bullshit. They can go live in New York City after they graduate from someplace far more affordable and better scholastically, academically. But anyway, I just love that. But there is more. This is George Washington University student Cecilia Culver, who is now also being investigated for this speech, and it goes a little harder in the paint.
For over a year, we have watched a genocide be committed against Palestinians. I cannot celebrate my own graduation without a heavy heart, knowing how many students in Palestine have been forced to stop their studies, expelled from their homes, and killed for simply remaining in the country of their ancestors. The horrors unfolding halfway across the world may be easy to ignore for those lacking a moral backbone. For the rest of us, these atrocities cause us to take stock in our own complacency in the imperialist system. I am ashamed to know my tuition is being used to fund genocide. I'm going to say that again. I am ashamed to know my tuition is being used to fund this genocide.
So we got to get rid of schools, dude. We got to get rid of universities.
How much trouble are they in? Like, did they not hear the cheers? Did they hear the boos of the Columbia president at their graduation? Like, they've broken it.
Yep.
That's what they don't get. They've broken America. They've broken the West. They are completely disconnected from the youth and the left. There's no coming back.
No, and played in beautifully to a Trumpian like world order now. With it's like, oh, we're just gonna put you under, some sort of like decree, or we're going to put you basically like Columbia University under direct supervision to make sure you're not being anti-Semitic / giving too much credence to the Palestinians. So George Washington University sent out an email apologizing to the graduates and families that their time of special celebration was disrupted. We're investigating this matter immediately, including whether event protocols were followed properly and whether the students' actions violated the code of conduct. What's so sick about this kind of shit is we're living in a post Mahmoud Khalil just got disappeared into Louisiana world. And to your point about Columbia student, let me just play this little clip of that president, the acting president, Claire Shipman, who's being booed. This is like mid-boo. We're like a minute into the boos, and then they break out into chants.
And I know we have a strong, strong tradition of free speech at this university. And I am always open to feedback, which I am getting right now. The work of your generation will be to shape these interesting times, to define the values.
Hey, there they go. Yeah.
First of all, she like personifies awful. Like, everything about her just seems condescending and ugly, and the way she is just like, yes, do your little thing. They feel untouchable. They're not untouchable, but they're like, read some history. What you're doing this stuff doesn't end well for you. It just doesn't.
No, and again, I mean, I'm joking when I say we need to do something about these universities, but you hear them say imperialism, you're like, oh boy, that's going to get you investigated by, fucking Kash Patel. They're already, trying to sell off TikTok to the highest bidder because of the free speech around Palestine. Liberals were along for that ride. A lot of them, not all of them. And now we see this, and it's like, well, you're going to have to put George Washington University under custodian, like under whatever it is, like a a conservatorship. That's the word I've been looking for. Like a conservatorship, because there's just too much free speech. I mean, this is what's crazy is like, that's why like Palestine is really so central, because, you know, there were battles fought in the 60s and 70s for ethnic studies, for Black studies, for gender studies, for, you know, these were battles. It didn't just fucking happen. Students did this. And so it's just wild that like, oh, you're allowing this one issue that seems to coalesce a lot of the things that kids are taught about. You know, we learn about colonialism. That's, again, post-colonial feminist theory. That's me. You know, and you're silencing speech on this one issue. Well, we could talk about everything else. Again, true lib shit, because they're like, oh, well, that stuff's history. I mean, you do a history podcast, Dave, which I think is so interesting because you can look back and talk about, I mean, some of them are inane and hilarious stories, but some of them are also like, well, we were always against this, which really is that mantra of like, you know, one day we will all say we were against this, but right now people are being silenced, investigated, disappeared for merely mentioning it.
I would say that they're going to try to say that, but as you can hear in the applause, the people who are going to try to say were against it are not going to be able to. I don't think they understand what they've done. And we all knew this was going to come to him starving a population. I mean, if you asked any leftists, this is, you know, Sarah Silverman said, you know, stop their water and food, like in the early days. And it was like, yeah,
she had an edible.
That's what they were always going to do.
What was her excuse? I was thinking about this the other day. She said she was like running on no sleep or something. And you were like, I think you were running on propaganda, girl. Like,
I don't get tired and get genocidal. That's not what happens.
No, not at all.
Like, people aren't going to forget that. People aren't going to forget that she said it. No one's going to forget Schumer. No one's going to forget the Dean of Columbia. It's all on the record. You're all on the record. France coming out and saying, oh, we've got to stop this now. You're done. No, you're on the record. You did this already. You did all of this. This is all you. Yeah. And I don't think there'd be anything differently happening if Biden was in office, not even slightly, or Harris. Nothing different would be happening.
We wouldn't have had the temporary ceasefire we had. I think we know that. I still believe that Harris was minimally more susceptible to pressure. But again, I think that any Democratic politician, what they should be doing right now is renouncing all AIPAC money, no matter what, or Israeli lobby money. And the fact that they're not is wild, because it's literally the least they could do. But they
don't know what to do, because all they know how to do is take money. So this is an incredibly powerful lobby, and they don't know what to do. Like the voters in the Democratic Party are like, I mean, is there anything that is that opposed? Like it's like 86% are just like, no, like it's crazy how much people are opposed to what's happening. Yeah. And the Democrats are just like, yeah, no, it's good. And you're like, what?
Ron Ryan reminding us that Barron Trump also finished his freshman year at NYU. So who knows? In 3 years, he might be saying words like imperialism, because that's what school does. Dave, Anthony, thank you so much for stopping by, and please come back anytime. But where can people listen to you, find you, watch you?
The Dollop podcast and the Pastimes, and then I am on Twitter a little bit. Well, I'm private on Twitter, so you can't find me there. Whoops. And Instagram, Dave _ comedy, Anthony comedy _. It's, you know, it's hard.
Are you guys going on tour?
Yes, actually, we are going on tour starting on June 3rd. We're doing cities in the Northwest. So if you live in the Northwest, go to Dollop podcast.
Don't miss it, you guys. It's going to be so good. I vouch for all of it. Not everything Gareth says, but everything Dave says.
That's right.
That's right. And I've been on the Pastimes podcast. It's so fun. Yes. Dave, thank you so much. I just realized your name is Lord Anthony, but we can't see that. But okay, Lord Anthony, thank you for stopping by. Good day to you, sir. And thank you all for being here, for sticking through. I'm going to read your super chats. I just want to let you know, we don't have any new patrons at $10 or more to get that fart song shout out. We don't have upgrades. We don't have no new Substack. Is that what it is? It's Substack. Paid subscribers, which is going to make me cry through the whole fart song. So don't make me cry. Twitch and YouTube, holler. And with that, I don't want to keep her waiting because she is a new mom. She's a writer, artist, co-host, and creator of the cult hit podcast, Death Panel Podcast. She writes the Substack Blind Archive, and you can buy her book, Health Communism, out now with Verso Books. Please welcome Beatrice Adler-Bolton. Hey, Beatrice.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you? You're hanging in there?
Tired, but good. Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you so much for doing the show. I realize it's funny when you rely on podcasting, content creating. There's no such thing as parental leave. Like there's no paid maternity leave. Are you kidding me? You got to get back to it. I was like,
exactly.
Better get back to the slop mill. At least in my case, I could see that Death Panel is back up and you're on it. And there's so much to talk about. But I did want to start, if you don't mind, talking about now that you have birthed human, how has that changed your thoughts on the healthcare system in this country? Or like, are you still going through it? Are you sort of sorting through your own thoughts around like motherhood and child rearing? Like, where are you at? Talk to me.
Definitely, I'm still in the kind of grappling with the bill stage of it all. I honestly didn't think that becoming a parent would really change my politics that much, but watching someone you love so completely be born into a system that wants to extract from them before they can even speak, it sharpens the stakes. And becoming a parent has been the most overwhelming and disorienting joy that I've ever felt. I mean, we get to know this new person. He's already appeared on the podcast by necessity. In real time, we're watching him like learn and grow and begin to experience the world around him. But also he's already subject to the grind of the machines of profit. I've been spending as much time thinking about pumping and breastfeeding schedules and bottle sanitization as I have been fighting the insurance bill to try and get it down to something approaching affordable.
This is related to his birth.
Yeah, we had a NICU stay, which is not inexpensive, and an emergency C-section and a hospitalization right before that. And we were actually in a car accident right the week before he was born.
Oh my God. You poor thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was like we were handed the baby and we were handed an even bigger bill, and, life is expensive and that gets real like really fast. But he's fine. We're doing good, and it's, it's like, it's not that I didn't know how bad it was before, right? Like this is what we do at Death Panel. This is what we cover. I've lived the system. I write about it. I continue to survive it. But now that I'm like watching it come for someone else who's brand new, who has no idea that they were born into this like all out war for care, it's really hard to watch, and in some ways it's like really good timing, I guess, because it's affirmed like all the things that we wrote about in Health Communism, which is out in paperback in July. So we have to sort of start thinking about the book again. But this is what we wrote about. This is like care should be unowned. It should be unearned. It needs to be unconditional. All care for all people. That's really the basement floor, right? If we're talking about what our demands should be.
And I think when I was starting to become an anti-capitalist, one of the, lessons that you kind of learn is how to unlearn the selfish greed that we are all taught we have, and we sort of naturally perform, and ergo capitalism and a privatized healthcare system is the only thing that could work because we're all just naturally greedy. And that simultaneously you're like, okay, well, what about the love of a parent? What about the amount of work you're doing? What about all the unpaid labor that you're doing for your child, your family, like that you do out of love? All of the stuff that you might do for your neighbors or your friends or your family, like none of that is actually factored in to how we run anything. And so it's interesting to be like, going through all of it and seeing there is a different way. And like, we should have this kind of care that a mother has for their new child in other aspects of our healthcare system. I mean, to say nothing of my biggest gripes were like, oh, great, you want me to bring in my week-old child back to the hospital for a visit and then my 2-month-old child for their vaccines? Can't you just send somebody here? Like, I get the anti-vax argument. I mean, I don't, but you know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, I gotta bring my screaming child, wait forever in the waiting room. You know, and like, yes, again, the bills and all that. It's
and it's hard to watch them not feel well. We just did our 2-month vaccines, and you know, it was like baby's first fever and baby's first acetaminophen, and boy, did he love grape drank Tylenol. He was like, oh, sugar, this is amazing. But you know, I did actually, it's funny you mentioned the anti-vax argument, because it did give me a kind of new perspective on it, which is like, yeah, I can understand that it's really difficult to feel like you're putting your kid through this, but at the same time, what you want to put them through, potentially measles instead, like, how does that make it make sense? It doesn't, you know.
It absolutely doesn't. I do think it's really radicalizing to become a new parent in when it comes to like healthcare and just basic needs. And now we have, I think, another aspect to that, which is like around reproductive care. Like, what did this experience, you know, did it give you insights or new thoughts about? Because we're at a time when, like, you know, the state of Georgia is keeping a brain dead woman alive in the hopes that possibly her now 20-week-old fetus will live and not be like severely disabled or like even be able to walk, or I don't like really like torture against their family's will because of the abortion laws in that state. Her name is Adriana Smith. And RFK Jr. just announced that they're going to be looking into mifepristone and possibly rescinding the patents for it, or the approval for it, excuse me, which, you know, is responsible. I think what 60% of all abortions are, or something like the vast majority are, you know, medical abortions, easy pills, and done early on in the early stages. So I guess I was just wondering also about like the sort of reproductive justice angle of the fucking world we're living in right now, of how much our hospital workers and clinicians, like, kind of like our enemies, like become these, like narcs, like people who could possibly imprison us, cops.
Yeah. I mean, and disabled people have been writing and thinking about this for a long time. And, you know, people who use drugs and racialized parents too, the way that the healthcare workforce is deputized to, you know, be this arm of surveillance, enforcement, reporting, right? I mean, thinking to like Dorothy Roberts's work, looking at family policing, so much of that sort of reporting infrastructure comes through healthcare workers too. But I think it's worth thinking about really what are the arguments being used around banning or revoking the approval for mifepristone, which is like full on pseudoscientific bullshit, right? Like the supposed alleged data that RFK is referring to here is like specious. It really, there is no basis for this. They are cherry picking because, and I think it's important, and it's like an obvious point, but it's too easy to be like, oh, well, they're just concerned with safety and they're just really worried about whether or not this has been studied properly. And this is the kind of like alibi that they've used for everything, for MMR vaccines, for the like absolutely ridiculous and eugenic crusade to make a list of people with autism and prove, you know, what causes autism, which is like a whole other conversation. But, you know, for each of these,
I wonder what they will find. I mean, we've been counting on this for a while now, but yes, keep going.
Exactly what they were looking for,
right?
You know, it's and this is also, I think, evidenced in the kind of carbon copy of the UK's Cass review that they just put out, which was like 400 pages about, you know, alleging like safety concerns as a pretext for denying trans care across the board. So, you know, it's worth always pushing back on the fact that like this argument around safety is not only ridiculous coming from someone who like loves bathing in polluted water, like drinks raw milk, had a brain worm, eats roadkill, like taped a whale to the top of his car with his kids inside. Like, you know, there's that kind of like comedy level, but then at the baseline, it's important to think about how it's really just a bunch of kind of discussion around safety and integrity and protection, right? And at the end of the day, what's going on is really like a rollback of abortion access in the name of safety, right?
And, just speaking on, we talked about, you talk about your own disabilities and, disability rights. And given that RFK Jr. is also, I think, simultaneously trying to basically say people who have like a mental illness or, even something like depression or ADHD that like he's going to be looking into SSRIs or going to be looking into any kind of psychological meds. Like that is terrifying, and replacing them with, and I'm big on a meditation. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I love meditation, but like replacing them with wellness camps and meditation and all that, to say nothing of, treating autistic people as if they're useless. They can't do anything. They can't even go to the bathroom by themselves, which is bullshit. Like we've heard this term, soft eugenics. My friends over at Conspirituality say it. Where do you stand on like how this administration is approaching the disabled and disability rights and sort of almost really blame? I think you talk a lot about the way that the system blames people for their own health conditions.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to Conspirituality, I think soft eugenics is a little too gentle. Right. This is just straight up eugenics, especially when you put it in the context of like the reproductive stuff that they've been talking about, where they want to give out awards to people, women who have had 6 or more children are going to get like a motherhood award. I mean, that is like straight out of Nazi Germany. There is really no daylight between the Make America Healthy Again agenda and what we know of is sort of classical eugenics, from the reproductive control angle all the way to the blame for societal problems on vulnerable populations, to like politics of elimination and extermination, which we've also, with no exaggeration, heard from them explicitly, right? And this is something they committed to. They want to eliminate chronic illness in the United States. They're not going to do that through making sure that people have care. They're not going to do that through looking at the real reasons why people have chronic illness in the US. What they're doing is really kind of like offering magical thinking to expand the carceral state. And it's the same logic that says that the cure for poverty is bootstraps, or, this is like the cure for illness is like milk and vibes, right? That's really it. But
even more than that, because someone's got to make money. I mean, it feels like we're in a time where the private healthcare industry has been so, allowed to fester, to prey on people, to, swindle people, that if you're not in it, you're not making the money. And so what are the new ways? And it's got to be alternative medicine, or, and I believe in some of it, but like shitty alternative medicine, it's got to be my supplements, because we've got to actually make a profit. And it's ironic because these are the same people who ostensibly say they don't like big pharma's money. Well, they don't like that they're not cashing in on big pharma's money. We are talking to Beatrice Adler-Bolton, by the way, of the Death Panels podcast. In case you didn't know, I did want to ask you, because you haven't been back since the Luigi Mangione story broke and the alleged murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione, who pled not guilty last week, he could face the death penalty. That is what the DOJ, I believe, is looking at. His attorney said he shouldn't face New York State charges. He didn't get his Miranda rights read. That's in part. There was a seizure of his backpack, possibly illegally. His next court date is in June 26th. I guess I just want to talk to you about like the Luigi Mangione effect, and like what it means that so many people, I know I was so nervous to post about like, this story, I remember. And then just watching folks in my comments be like, nah, had it coming. Yup. I think this is good. It's like, oh shit, we are so black-pilled on this issue because folks are so frustrated. But tell me, how you guys have been talking about it and your thoughts on the trial and such.
I mean, I don't think it's an issue of being blackpilled. I think it's just recognition, right? You know, recognition for the fact that we all live under this system that thrives on extraction and abandonment. You know, it's not hard to understand how rage builds when you're held hostage by a health system that sees your life as a line item, that, you know, treats everything as an opportunity for profit. When the person who's standing between you and a necessary medication, you know, is someone who lives in a glass house and drives a glass yacht, like the CEO of a healthcare corporation, right? Which is universally known for their practices of, you know, nickel and diming people to death. It's really no surprise that people see a sort of release and celebration in the fact that that sort of untouchable structure was taken to the point of being touchable for the first time.
Right.
You know, this is the first time in US history that an insurance executive has faced consequences for their actions. Like, the first time ever. That's important to remember, you know, that's really important to remember. And it's, you know, we're told that, you know, it's a problem that violence has been politicized in this case or whatever, but, you know, the political violence in the United States is constant, right?
Yep.
Like, it just usually doesn't come from the bottom up. It's usually managed by insurers, underwritten by the state, you know, executed in quiet, bureaucratic means, or it's done in a spectacular scale in the case of, you know, the many genocides that the United States gleefully funds. But this is also the kind of, I think this is a really interesting historical return to an earlier era. You know, assassination historically has been framed in the anarchist tradition as something called the propaganda of the deed, right? A symbolic act that ignites the masses. It also demonstrates that no one's untouchable. And this is something that, like, in the 19th century, in the, you know, sort of age of the Industrial Revolution, this was a common tactic, right? Like, this is something that was a part of American life. And, you know, we've been talking about it as a kind of return to that, which, you know, is a kind of interesting parallel to the fact that eugenics is back in a very big way.
But also the kinds of inequality of that time, you know, and the massive income inequality, the kind of return to the feudalism that I think so many of the oligarchs behind Trump and elsewhere pine away for. Just kind of, I mean, the unspoken, like, thing that happens in the utopia of all these tech fascists is that people die. Massive amounts of people die. And that's okay. And we're seeing that now. I mean, I guess maybe just to talk about Medicaid, because, you know, I believe have talked about it a lot, you know, but I did some work on this as well for the one special I had on MSNBC years ago. But, you know, like, you know, under this new budget bill that may pass as soon as tomorrow, it may not, who knows, 10.3 million Americans could lose their Medicaid care. And these are in places, you know, obviously red states, blue states, it really doesn't matter. And people will die. And I think also there's another, I guess maybe just related to that, you know, when I did my Medicaid, well, no, let's just talk about Medicaid first, and then I'll find my other question, but maybe just your reactions. We also saw organizations like stage protests of people in wheelchairs staging protests last week of this new budget bill that would throw so many people off of Medicaid.
Yeah, I think it's worth also saying that the Biden administration laid the groundwork for this. We are coming off of something that was talked about and named as the Medicaid unwinding, which was basically a process that was triggered by the end of the federal public health emergency. So when the federal public health emergency was being negotiated, and, you know, the Biden administration was talking to Congress, and they were saying, oh, you know, we know you want to end it and we want to end it, so let's figure this out. They decoupled the changes in, like, law that had allowed Medicaid to grow larger than it had ever been. We had 95 million people.
This is, again, during COVID, because of COVID.
Right. Like, basically in 2020, what happened is they said that it was illegal to kick people off of Medicaid, that redeterminations were paused. Normally, Medicaid recipients go through this draconian reevaluation process, and it's really, you know, disruptive. It's called churn, basically. People get kicked off, and this is factored into the cost of the system. And so what happened is like COVID relief money really injected additional like federal dollars into Medicaid. And as a condition of accepting that money, they said to states, and you can't kick anyone off of Medicaid if you take this extra money. So for years, that process of churn was gone. You know, we saw people's health flourish in the context of a devastating pandemic because so many people had access to steadier care than they had had for years. So many more people got access to Medicaid. So what happened is the Biden administration in this bargaining process like separated that Medicaid money from the federal public health emergency, saying, oh, we need to preserve this change to Medicaid, and we need to, like, when we turn it back on, we have to do it carefully, and we have to make sure people aren't immiserated. And so the federal public health emergency ended, and then like 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, and then we're done with the Medicaid stuff. Like, as if, you know, any of that sort of posturing didn't matter. I think they just really didn't want the headline of like, ends federal public health emergency and millions of people are getting kicked off of Medicaid, right? Like, they did not want that headline. They engineered it. They didn't get that headline. But what happened was in a year, 25 million people were kicked off of Medicaid, most of them for what are called procedural reasons. It means their paperwork got sent to an empty field instead of their house. They sent their paperwork in, but it didn't get processed right. Maybe they're working in a state that contracted with Deloitte to implement a new auto-sorting AI system in Medicaid, and their application was arbitrarily denied. So over 70% of the people who were kicked off for these paperwork reasons.
Yeah.
So the state of Medicaid right now is already like devastating. People have died as a result of this. It's been the largest single contraction of healthcare coverage in US history. The Medicaid unwinding is something people barely talked about. We covered it extensively on the show. But so it's important to understand these Trump cuts as layering on top of some extreme misery that preceded it. And I think that they feel so comfortable coming for Medicaid, which is usually considered relatively untouchable. You know, there's a lot of posturing around Medicaid. There's a lot of threatening to cut Medicaid because it's always a discussion of like, you know, too many poor people are surviving. This is like the free rider syndrome,
really,
you know,
really.
Like that, all that sort of, you know, crass like rhetoric. But what we just saw is the Democratic president kicked off, you know, millions of people and faced no political repercussions for it. Right. So Republicans who have always come for Medicaid, I mean, what's stopping them now?
Well, this is
certainly not Democrats.
Well, certainly not Democrats. I mean, we'll see, you know, obviously they don't have necessarily the votes in to defeat it, but you know, Democrats are always very comfortable in the minority when they can't do anything there and their hands are tied. But this is sort of why I get, you know, as a pundit, very annoyed at Republicans who now are like big old never Trumpers and big old like, oh, what's happening is bad. Like, they weren't shitting on Medicaid recipients for fucking decades, and all of their heroes have done the exact same thing. We saw this coming a mile away. This is the meme of the guy with the knife that's like, you know, across the room, and the other person's like, oh no, like, we know, we've seen this. You were part of this whole thing. Stop acting like you care about Medicaid. I did want to ask you about, I had another thing, but specifically about Joe Biden. You know, he has this severe advanced prostate cancer diagnosis. One of the things that I also covered in this MSNBC special that got cut and whatnot, but it was interesting. I was with a woman who, you know, she had a breast cancer diagnosis. They caught it. She got a double mastectomy, all that. But I was talking to, you know, one of the things I really wanted to drive home was, you know, we have a lot of research put into cancer research, which I think is good. And however, of course, now the NIH is cutting it to a tune. I had this here. I prepped it for my discussion with Dave. I think Senator Sanders did a War on Science report, $2.7 billion less to researchers through March, 31% decline in cancer research grant funding in the first 3 months of 2025, which is obviously awful objectively. But I also feel as though so much of cancer is survivable if two things happen. Number one, there's early detection. And number two, if there's the money to undergo the treatments. And I was, you know, also doing some, you know, work. It's like something like 20% or 26% of, hang on, I wrote this down, 42%, this is a study, NIH study in 2019, 42% of cancer patients over 50 depleted their assets to pay for care. It was worse with patients over the age of 75 and those without health insurance. And also, even if you're on Medicare but don't have supplemental care, so you pay an additional, like Medicare, excuse me, when you're older, it's also a massive cost. So just this idea that like so much of the survivability of cancer does come down to detection and whether you were able to see a doctor or get the scans, as well as your ability to pay for it. But just weigh in here on maybe the Biden stuff or your thoughts on this what I just laid out.
Yeah, I mean, this is so common that it literally has a term for it, which is financial toxicity, which is when people with cancer die of not being able to afford cancer treatment, not of, like that having been able to avail themselves of all the care that exists, like their cancer wouldn't have killed them. It's the constant sort of downward spiral of bill after bill after bill, and also treatment decisions that sometimes the doctors are making based on financial means, and sometimes the patient is making based on financial means. And sometimes patients say, I don't want to bankrupt my family and leave them with this huge bill after I die. I'm going to make a decision to not have treatment because I'd rather have less years with my family than have them under the thumb of more medical debt, right? And so the kind of tragic irony of this is Biden came into office saying, I'm going to cure cancer. I'm going to cure cancer. We're going to put in all this money, the Moonshot Cancer Initiative. This is like a kind of laughable goal if you're treating cancer in a vacuum and you're not talking about like comprehensive environmental and economic justice, right?
Yeah.
Which obviously they weren't. But the thing that like I can't stop thinking of is really like typically prostate cancer is not fast. There's a certain percentage of prostate cancer that is out of nowhere fast and metastasizes like really quickly. I don't think that this is a recent diagnosis of his.
Yeah.
I really don't think this is recent at all. And I think it's like quite rich to sort of like compare what he did to people, for example, in the Medicaid unwinding, the way that he shut down Medicare for all so thoroughly, with the fact that he had the best care in the world, and even he can't escape the worst consequences of a cancer diagnosis, probably with the kind of healthcare that you get while you're the sitting president. Yeah. Because it's, like, again, quite unlikely that he's in that percentage of people, that very small percentage of people that went straight into stage 4 cancer. Yeah. He's not someone that was like avoiding, medical care for years. Right. And even like, Zeke Emanuel, who I don't agree with on most things, is like doing the rounds on the Sunday shows being like, yeah, Biden definitely had this cancer in office. And, he's that's like, no one should live over the age of 75 because after that age, like, life is meaningless.
Dave Anthony was just telling me, I know that this guy's actually also a ghoul, but like, yes, that's really funny. Jesus. I mean, it's just like we keep having to come back to the same thing, which is the profit motive in the healthcare system. And again, like, it's 98% of breast cancer, for example, is like beatable, treatable. But are you detecting it? I know many women under 40 who've gotten breast cancer, but your screening isn't covered until you hit 40. So you're paying out of pocket. And then, there's all kinds of like, oh, you got dense breast tissue. Well, we can't really see nothing. Hope you don't have it. Like, there's all these other layers. Okay. So if you want a CT scan, imagine how much that was my last issue. I'm like, well, I don't know what that's going to even cost me, and I have health insurance that I pay way too fucking much for. But like, so yeah, on and on and on. It is the result of so much money, and the profit motive in this healthcare system that, again, even right-wingers were celebrating Luigi Mangione's actions or alleged actions. And that caught everyone flat-footed.
Yeah, I mean, like, when the deed that he's accused of doing, happened, I cried. not in like a sad way, in a like cathartic way, because I thought of all the friends over the years that I've lost to health insurance greed, that I've lost to denials. Like all the people who had died were back with me in that moment and had been vindicated for the bureaucratic violence that like directly contributed to their deaths. It's really no surprise like that people took this as a moment to sort of see a folk hero in whoever did that. You know, again, it's the propaganda of the deed. It doesn't matter who did it. It's the fact that the deed itself has been done in such a public way, and they're going to do everything they can to persecute the person that they've accused of doing this. And I think it's, you know, like, as you're saying, allegedly, like it's important for all of us to be talking about this without, you know, as much as like all the Luigi memes are really funny and really great, and I'm here for it, like it's also on us to not reproduce the state's propaganda that's trying to take the power out of this moment and like refocus it in on the kind of personality and the trial and everything, because all of that, you know, takes away from the fact that like someone who is untouchable faced consequences. Yeah. And that is incredibly meaningful to the millions of people in this country who have had their lives ruined by health insurance, who have had their loved ones taken from them, who have had even just the terror of like what to do about healthcare. Yeah. You know, with like, I feel really sick. Do I go to the emergency room? What's going to kill me faster? What's wrong with me, maybe? Or the bill, right? Like that's going to potentially destabilize my housing or, you know, like whatever. I know so many parents who have had really sick kids who have gone and like spent the night in the car outside of the ER because they're like, I don't know if I can take on this bill, but like, I think my kid might have RSV and they're like breathing really weird and I don't know what to do. And I'm just so worried. I'm just going to go. And that way, if like in the middle of the night, I just need to take them, like I can take them at the last possible moment, but then like, maybe it'll be okay. Maybe it'll be fine, you know?
You kind of alluded to this, but this is my last question. We're talking to Beatrice Adler-Bolton of Death Panel Podcast and the book Health Communism that is coming to paperback soon. You kind of mentioned something about AI, and I guess I just wanted to ask you, what's the future of healthcare? We know Amazon's trying to get into it. Do you have any updates on their progress? Or, you know, I've seen something like, ooh, this AI machine was able to detect early cancer. And I'm like, cool. How much does it fucking cost for you to get that scan? Like, but yeah, tell me what you guys are all, what you're looking at when it comes to the future of healthcare.
Well, I mean, we've been watching like the AI hype around healthcare for years, you know, like when we started the show back in 2018, this was already a huge part of it. This is a huge part of disability determinations and has been for years. There are many machine learning algorithms that pre-sort disability applications and pre-scan through, because you're submitting like thousands of documents with electronic health records now. Your medical chart can be, I mean, mine is like over 8,000 pages when last I checked. And so like, how could a human being, let alone like someone in an underfunded Social Security office, like actually meaningfully sort through that stuff? Like it passes through machine learning first that looks for things. There's, you know, the whole process of disability applications is a great example of this, where like the process basically guarantees that like most people are going to get denied the first time around. And then through the appeal is where you actually sort of do your real application. Like you have to submit everything and then you expect denial and then you have to work through the process of the appeal.
So much work.
And I think that we're only going to see more denials and some really insidious sort of optimization bullshit, like in the scale of healthcare workforce. You know, I think like healthcare workers need to start recognizing that they need to betray their class position. Like they're already implicated in these violent extractive systems, as we've been talking about this whole time. You know, it's on them to really like push back and to, you know, betray their sort of status as a healthcare worker and align themselves with patients, because like they're right now they're like protected a little bit, right? But I think that like where AI is looking, where people who are hype around AI are really looking, is to replace providers at all levels.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, you can sort of think about these two groups as like having opposing interests, and a lot of providers do think that way. Or you could get with the program and see yourself as allied with the people that you provide care to, and come together, you know, in solidarity rather than be a cop.
Yeah, this conversation is so fitting because it follows from our Friday conversation with Carlos and Ronica, who have this whole book, All This Safety is Killing Us, which is about kind of the
Great
prison
book.
industrial. Yes. And so I'm just like, this is so perfect. And, you know, in terms of like the future, you heard like Mehmet Oz the other day, who oversees now Medicaid and Medicare, who's like, we need 15-minute physicals and you're in and out. And, you know, and it's like, what are you even talking about? Like we're not doing things expedient enough. And it's like, well, what if they get a diagnosis? Like, why would you show up to your 15-minute physical if there's actually going to be something wrong with you, you know? So, again, the kind of like, where else can late stage capitalism bleed or extract money from people, as you put it. And, you know, in Medicaid right now, in terms of AI, or in the budget bill, they're saying, well, okay, we're going to forego the right to regulate AI for the next 10 years, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, ironically, most physicals are already about 15 minutes long.
Totally.
And Oz also, you know, is someone who for years has been a huge proponent of privatizing Medicare, and like a huge booster for Medicare Advantage, which again uses AI and has used AI for a long time for algorithmic denials to process claims faster and faster and faster. You know, they're like, we want 50 denials an hour. So like, this is how we do it, because no human being could even do that if they're being like lazy and cruel and denying everything. It still wouldn't go that fast, right? You know, like, so it's no surprise that he's also in the past said like, oh, you know, what if we helped people with no insurance get like healthcare by having like a festival atmosphere where people could come and like in groups get physicals in a tent together, like, you know, real
right. I think this was the same clip, but yeah, it's just like, okay, well, you know what we need to do? Gamify it, televise it. I mean, that's really the solution. Kristi Noem is floating, everyone's floating now. Anything I left on the table, Beatrice, before we let you go?
I would say the other quote that Oz has been sort of infamous for recently is saying that it's your patriotic duty to not use healthcare. The good citizens don't use healthcare. And it's an important way to think about how health is labor discipline, right? Like whether it's disciplining the worker who has to maintain their health to keep their job, disciplining the non-worker for not being healthy enough to hold a job, the way that health insurance is connected to employment, or the way that, you know, the idea of mandating 15-minute physicals or telling doctors to start performing medicine in a festival environment is also labor discipline on the other end of the spectrum. You know, health is, according to the WHO, health is the absence not just of disease, but it's a total physical and mental sense of well-being. And as we talk about in health communism, that is impossible in the United States. That is absolutely impossible. No one can be healthy in the United States. And the whole Make America Healthy Again agenda is so popular because it's like addressing something very real, which is the state of like absolutely abject abandonment that we all are in right now, except for it's offering a bunch of pseudoscientific silver bullet, you know, hokum instead of the actual solution, which is unfortunately the hard work of having to change everything.
I think that calling it labor discipline is really important to remember. That, of course, that one, you know, we don't talk about it like that, but the first thing anyone says when they talk about leaving a job or getting a job is healthcare. It is the first thing you say, almost before you could say what you're going to be making.
Yep. I mean,
if what you're going to be making is not good. So it's just like, oh, well, at least I get healthcare. It's the benefits, which is just healthcare.
And if folks want to learn how to talk about health as labor discipline, fortunately, there's a book called Health Communism that teaches you how to do that. That's all about that.
How can people get the book? Where do you go? Or you suggest local bookstores or?
It's published by Verso. I think the cheapest price right now is through Verso directly. Paperbacks are on pre-order at the moment, so you can get a less expensive copy. Request it at your local library, pirate it, whatever. Just read it. I don't care.
Everybody read Health Communism. Beatrice Adler-Bolton and Artie Virkant. Did I pronounce that right at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Beatrice. Thanks for taking the time. Congrats on everything. Ooh, look, 20% off. We'll see you again. You're awesome. Appreciate you.
Likewise. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
So good. Goddamn. See, look at all these people. These people are the best people. I've got the best people. Beatrice is wonderful. Can't believe she's a new mom. And / the world is so much better for it. Thank you all for being here. What a long, robust, lovely show. I'm going to read some comments and super chats and hopefully, have the fart song. Thank you all for becoming members and such. Robert says the Dems are chomping at the bit for the opportunity to betray their voters and serve their donors. That's why they keep voting with Trump. Yeah. And they don't want the bad press. I mean, Beatrice sort of mentioned that. GS says, if it wasn't for Gaza, I would have voted Dem like every time before. Now I don't trust anything they say. I think a lot of people share your sentiment. Zane the Magic Puffer Dragon, what's up? Says, yeah, it does, lol. I've loved every show from Jessica's live comedy. That's right. Donald James, I'm sad I'm going to miss it tomorrow in Pasadena. It's been awesome every time. Tomorrow, come through. May 21st, Pasadena Ice House at 7:45 p.m. It's going to be so fun. We got a great lineup. Brian Cook, Curtis Cook. We got 2 cooks. Suba Agarwal, people who've been on this show before. We got to get Brian Cook on this show. Ali Bubble member says that's how they did Feinstein weekend at Bernie's, indeed. And then she died in office. And every time we were saying it, they were like, how dare you? You're sexist. You're like, no, I just have eyes. Rachel Atwood, Dr. Jill is so pleasant. Hating her is really hard. I know. And yet we find a way. Sorry. I just don't. I'm not a Jill. You guys know I'm not a Jill Stein person. It's fine. Lots of reasons. Gary Cooper says you can't be an airline pilot after age 65. Maybe that should be the rule for presidents and vice presidents. For the same reason, they hold many other lives in their hands. I think that's a really astute comment. However, I was like, how old is Chris Van Hollen? Did anyone else Google that this week? Which was like, oh, Chris Van Hollen speaking out for Palestine. Oh my God. Like I was like, oh, how old is he? He's 66. So if he were he's going to be like 70. So maybe 75. Not quite the same as flying a plane. Thank you so much. Let's see. No, thank you so much for the super stickers, Electron Creations, Massive Diaries, Massage Diaries, not Massive Diaries. Kaylin B, I just found out I'm most likely on the spectrum last month. I don't really want to go to RFK's camps for people on the spectrum. No, you do not. Natalie from ContraPoints had a tangent about this. She called it granola fascism, the link between New Age and fascism. Yeah, I mean, WooAnon was my favorite, but, Sabi Raza says Biden destroyed cancer centers in Palestine. Yeah, I mean, he aided the destruction of them. But yeah, I mean, this is, again, the irony, the hypocrisy. I can't. You can't look at this man and not think about that. Threat 209 on Twitch. I literally just got a denial today. Good God, I'm sorry. Please appeal. They rely on us not appealing. They rely on us just sort of like forgetting it because who's got the time? Who's got the time? Frank Rockefeller, you know I only read your comments if it's going to be $50 or more. You're a Rockefeller. Veronica H. Song, for Luigi, rest in power. He's not gone yet, Veronica. Just Julie, thank you for Jessica Todd, Roy, the producers page. Oh, Just Julie, and your guests, please keep talking about healthcare in our country and around the world. As Miss Rachel said, it helps us all. It does indeed. And thank you, the Green Knight, thanks for bringing Beatrice back on the show. I appreciate the work y'all do. Beatrice, thank you so much for continuing to talk about the ongoing impact of COVID. Yes, I'm glad we also, Dave coming in hot with that too, which is important for us to remember. Please mask up when you're in large groups, definitely on planes and airports. That's just sort of my one place where I always will. I don't take a lot of public transportation, but if I did, I would. And here we go, guys. Thank you so much. Here is the fart song. And we got to thank our new members over on YouTube. Members like King Carcass 1349. Thank you so much. We also got to thank over on Twitch Mobius 638 gifting a membership. Miss Eviscerate, thank you so much. Love you, Francesca. Know you. Hunger Games 1989 on Twitch, resubscribe. 21 months strong. When will Americans get Medicare for all? We deserve it. Stop giving healthcare insurance billions of dollars to scam us. Agreed. Tampa Bay Cannon, subscribe. Thank you so much for subscribing with Prime. Anyone join in a pinch? Oh, John Farrell. John. That fart is for you, as is our bonus episode that we do every Wednesday, as is the Ask Me Anything. John, send me a question. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world. It's, the price of a cocktail a month. You don't need that drink. You need the Frantifa. Thank you to Paige Omek, to Brent Godin, to Andy Vasoyan. Love them. Love their work. See us live May 30th. Paige is going to be here. I mean, that's a reason enough. And until tomorrow, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine. Don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Bye.